What if I told you that even the kindest people, the ones who smile, help others, and preach positivity, feel a quiet sense of relief, sometimes even pleasure, when someone else fails, not because they're evil, but because they're human? Tonight, we expose a truth most people refuse to admit: why good people secretly enjoy seeing others fail. Grow up believing good people are pure, that kindness erases dark thoughts, that morality means emotional perfection. But psychology tells a very different story, and it starts in silence. The human brain is wired to compare long before it learns to judge. From early childhood, people understand their place in the world by measuring themselves against others. Who is faster, smarter, more successful, more admired? This comparison process happens automatically and silently. It doesn't require jealousy or bad intentions. It's simply how the mind creates a sense of identity and position. Even people who are deeply kind and self-aware cannot turn this mechanism off, because it operates beneath conscious thought. As people grow older, comparisons become more subtle but more intense. Instead of toys or grades, the mind compares careers, income, relationships, confidence, and recognition. Most of this happens internally, without words. A person may sincerely wish others well, yet still feel a quiet pressure when someone close to them succeeds. That pressure comes from the unspoken question the brain keeps asking: what does their success say about me? This question creates tension, not because of hatred, but because self-worth feels temporarily challenged. When someone else fails, that tension loosens. The brain stops racing to recalibrate its position. The internal scale settles. For a moment, there is no need to catch up, prove anything, or question one's own progress. This shift is subtle, but the nervous system recognizes it instantly. The feeling that follows is not excitement or celebration. It is the calm that comes when pressure disappears. Relief often gets misinterpreted as pleasure, even though its root is emotional safety. Psychologically, this relief serves a protective function. Constant comparison is exhausting, and the brain looks for ways to reduce emotional strain. Seeing another person stumble temporarily quiets the internal scoreboard. It allows the mind to breathe and regain balance. This reaction does not mean the person wants others to suffer. It means the brain is responding to reduced threat. The absence of comparison feels like rest, and rest can feel good, even when it comes from uncomfortable circumstances. What makes this experience confusing is that it clashes with a person's values. Good people believe they should feel compassion at all times. So when relief appears, it creates inner conflict. That conflict often leads to guilt, denial, or silence. But acknowledging this reaction is not a moral failure. It is an honest recognition of how the mind works. Understanding it allows people to respond consciously rather than pretending they are immune to human psychology. When people witness the success of others, the brain often interprets it as a silent signal of threat. Not a physical danger, but a psychological one. Success around us highlights gaps in our own lives. Goals not reached, delayed, potential unrealized. Even confident, morally grounded people feel this tension because the mind instinctively tracks status and progress. This reaction is automatic and does not require conscious jealousy. It is the nervous system responding to perceived pressure and comparison. Failure in others reverses that pressure. When someone else stumbles, the mind unconsciously recalculates its position and senses a pause in the race. The inner dialogue softens. Thoughts like "I'm falling behind" or "I'm running out of time" momentarily quiet down. This does not come from wanting others to lose, but from the relief of no longer feeling exposed. Psychologically, reduced threat equals increased safety, and safety is one of the brain's most powerful regulators of emotion. This sense of safety works on a biological level. The brain's stress response is closely tied to uncertainty and self-evaluation. When comparison pressure drops, cortisol levels ease, muscle tension reduces, and the nervous system shifts closer to a calm state. The body reads this shift as comfort. Because the change happens quickly and quietly, the mind may label it as pleasure, even though it is actually the absence of stress rather than the presence of joy. Importantly, this reaction does not require cruelty or ill will. Most people still empathize with the pain of failure on a conscious level. However, emotional systems do not always align perfectly. It is possible to feel compassion and relief at the same time. The relief comes from self-preservation, not from harm. Psychology shows that humans are capable of holding conflicting emotions simultaneously, especially when identity and self-worth are involved. What makes this experience feel uncomfortable is the moral lens people place over their emotions. Good people expect themselves to feel only sympathy, so when safety or comfort appears, it feels wrong. But emotions are signals, not verdicts. Feeling safer when comparison pressure drops does not define character. It reveals how deeply the brain prioritizes survival and emotional stability. Awareness of this process allows people to respond with intention instead of shame, turning an unconscious reaction into conscious understanding. Morality is something people learn over time. It is shaped by family, culture, education, and social consequences. From childhood, individuals are taught what is acceptable, what is praised, and what is punished. Kindness, fairness, and empathy become part of a person's identity because they are reinforced and rewarded. Over years, this moral framework feels natural and internal, but psychologically, it sits on top of much older systems in the brain rather than replacing them. Long before morality existed, the human brain evolved to survive in groups where hierarchy mattered. Rank determined access to resources, safety, and influence. These instincts did not disappear just because society became more civilized. Modern life no longer requires physical dominance, but the brain still tracks position in subtle way: status, respect, achievement, and recognition. These calculations happen automatically, without permission from conscious values. When someone identifies as a good person, their moral identity shapes how they behave outwardly, not how their instincts fire internally. The instinctive part of the brain reacts first, before logic or ethics step in. A shift in hierarchy, such as someone else losing status or success, is registered instantly. This reaction is not a decision. It is a reflex rooted in survival mechanisms that once kept humans alive in competitive environments. Good people differ, not because they lack these instincts, but because they regulate them. Self-awareness, empathy, and social responsibility intervene after the instinctive response. The brain may notice a change in rank or pressure, but moral reasoning steps in to guide behavior. This is why the reaction often stays hidden, brief, or unspoken. The feeling passes quickly, replaced by conscious thoughts about compassion, fairness, or concern. Psychologically, this balance between instinct and morality is normal and healthy. Expecting morality to erase instinct entirely creates unrealistic standards and internal conflict. Understanding that good people still possess ancient survival responses allows for greater emotional honesty. It explains why certain reactions arise quietly, even when they contradict personal values. What defines character is not the instinct itself, but how consciously and responsibly it is managed once it appears. Envy is often misunderstood as a loud, obvious emotion marked by resentment or hostility, but psychologically, it rarely appears that way in healthy, functional people. In reality, envy is more likely to be quiet and concealed. It hides behind rational thoughts, neutral expressions, and socially acceptable behavior. A person may genuinely congratulate others, support them, and even admire them, while a subtle emotional tension exists beneath the surface. This tension is not hatred. It is the mind registering a perceived gap between itself and someone else. Most people are not consciously aware of their envy because it does not announce itself clearly. Instead of saying, "I want what they have," the mind reframes it into safer narratives, like they were just lucky or everyone has their own timing. These thoughts reduce discomfort and protect self. Silence and indifference often serve as emotional shields, allowing people to avoid confronting feelings that clash with their identity as kind, fair, or supportive individuals. When the person who is unconsciously envied experiences failure, the emotional tension quietly dissolves. There is no celebration, no outward satisfaction. Instead, the dominant feeling is calm. The internal comparison that once created pressure fades, and the mind no longer feels challenged or threatened. This calm is not rooted in malice, but in balance being restored. Psychologically, the mind prefers equilibrium, and the removal of upward comparison brings that equilibrium back. This transformation from envy into calm happens because envy is fundamentally about self-evaluation, not about the other person. The brain is constantly monitoring where it stands in relation to others, especially those it perceives as similar or relevant. When the comparison gap narrows due to someone else's setback, the mind stops working as hard to defend self. Emotional energy that was previously spent on quiet self-judgment is released, creating a sense of ease. What makes this process difficult to accept is the moral judgment people place on envy itself. Many believe that feeling envy makes them flawed or unkind, so they suppress or deny it. But psychology shows that envy is a natural emotional signal, not a character flaw. It becomes harmful only when it turns into bitterness or harmful action. When recognized honestly, envy loses its power and no longer needs to hide behind silence. Awareness transforms it from an unconscious reaction into a manageable human experience. Grounded in reality, the human mind has a deep need to believe that the world is fair and meaningful. Psychologists call this the belief in a just world, the assumption that people generally get what they deserve. This belief helps individuals feel safe and oriented in an unpredictable reality. If effort leads to success and mistakes lead to failure, then life feels understandable and controllable. Without this belief, the world would seem random and threatening, which creates anxiety and emotional instability. When someone experiences failure, the mind instinctively looks for explanations that preserve this sense of fairness. Rather than accepting that bad outcomes can happen to good people, the brain searches for flaws, mistakes, or moral shortcomings. It's like they were overconfident, they took shortcuts, or they didn't earn it emerge automatically. These explanations are often formed without evidence, but they serve an important psychological function. They protect the belief that outcomes are deserved, not accidental. This mental process also reduces internal conflict. If a person feels even a small sense of relief when someone else fails, guilt can follow immediately. To ease that guilt, the mind reframes the situation. If the failure feels justified, then the relief feels acceptable. The brain is not trying to be cruel. It is trying to stay consistent. Justifying the outcome allows a person to maintain their self-image as moral and compassionate while unconsciously benefiting from the emotional relief. Psychologically, this bias also protects self-worth. If others fail because of personal flaws, then one's own struggles feel less threatening. The mind concludes, as long as I avoid those mistakes, I'll be safe. This creates a sense of order and predictability. By assigning meaning to another person's failure, the brain reassures itself that success and failure are controllable, even when reality is far more complex. The danger of this pattern is not the thought itself, but the lack of awareness. When people believe their explanations are purely objective, empathy can quietly erode. However, recognizing this bias restores balance. Understanding that the mind naturally seeks fairness even when it distorts reality allows people to respond more consciously. Awareness softens judgment, reduces hidden guilt, and replaces silent justification with a more honest understanding of how human psychology truly works. Every person carries an internal story about who they are and where they stand in life. This story is built from past experiences, disappointments, successes, and unmet expectations. It quietly explains why things turned out the way they did. Some people believe they are overlooked, others feel underappreciated, and many feel their efforts have not been rewarded fairly. These narratives are not lies. They are emotional interpretations the mind creates to make sense of complex realities. Psychologically, the brain is strongly motivated to protect these personal narratives because they provide identity and meaning. When reality threatens them, discomfort arises. For example, if someone believes they work harder than others, seeing someone else succeed effortlessly can create inner conflict. The mind resists this contradiction because it destabilizes the story that has been used for years to explain one's position in life. Cognitive consistency feels safer than questioning deeply held beliefs. When someone else fails, that failure can quietly reinforce the internal story. The mind links the event to existing beliefs, even if the connection is weak or illogical. Thoughts like, see, it doesn't always work out for them either, or talent alone isn't enough, arise naturally. This does not require conscious intention. The brain is simply searching for confirmation that its long-held explanation of reality still holds true. This process is known in psychology as confirmation bias, where people notice and emotionally register information that supports their existing beliefs more strongly than information that challenges them. Another person's failure becomes symbolic rather than factual. It is no longer just their experience. It becomes evidence that the world aligns with one's personal narrative. This reduces uncertainty and emotional discomfort, which the brain interprets as relief. The key point is that this reaction is not about wishing harm on others. It is about the mind defending its sense of coherence and self-worth. When people are unaware of this process, they may feel confused or ashamed by their emotional response, but understanding it reveals something important. Humans are meaning-making creatures. We constantly search for proof that our story makes sense. Awareness allows us to question those stories gently, rather than letting them quietly shape our emotions and judgments without our consent. Social media has transformed the way humans perceive success, status, and achievement. Unlike earlier generations, where comparisons were limited to friends, family, or co-workers, people now witness the curated lives of hundreds or even thousands of others daily. Every post, story, or highlight reel is carefully constructed to show success, happiness, and accomplishment. Psychologically, this constant exposure creates the perception that everyone else is winning, thriving, and living a life far superior to one's own, even though the reality behind the scenes is far more complex. The brain responds strongly to these constant signals of achievement because it evolved to monitor social hierarchies and group status. When we see others consistently winning, the unconscious mind interprets it as a threat to our position or progress. Even the most emotionally balanced individuals can feel tension, inadequacy, or silent anxiety. This tension is subtle and often goes unnoticed, but it consumes cognitive and emotional energy. Social media doesn't create envy alone. It magnifies natural comparison instincts that have always existed in human psychology. When failure or struggle appears online, it triggers a powerful emotional response. Seeing that someone who seemed untouchable has a setback feels grounding. It confirms that success is not flawless or permanent, and that even highly admired people face challenges. Psychologically, the human brain finds relief in this reality check because it temporarily reduces social pressure. The contrast between constant success and a rare failure makes the failure emotionally salient, creating a sense of equilibrium after prolonged tension. This reaction is also tied to the brain's reward system. The amygdala and limbic regions respond to emotionally charged events, and seeing someone's misstep activates these areas. Relief, subtle satisfaction, or the perception of fairness all arise as the nervous system interprets the event as reducing threat or restoring balance. The experience is not necessarily malicious. It is a natural, biologically grounded response to observing changes in social status that affect one's internal sense of safety and identity. The key to understanding this phenomena is awareness. Social media is not reality. It is a highlight reel designed to impress, inspire, and sometimes manipulate perception. Recognizing that emotional reactions to others' failures online are natural responses to heightened comparison allows individuals to process them consciously. Awareness transforms fleeting relief or satisfaction into insight about one's own values, priorities, and emotional patterns. By understanding the psychological mechanisms behind these reactions, people can remain empathetic while navigating the pressures of a world where success is always on display. Empathy is often seen as a limitless quality, something that defines the goodness of a person. In reality, even the most compassionate individuals have boundaries dictated by biology and psychology. Empathy is an energy-intensive process. The brain has to process another person's emotions, understand their perspective, and respond appropriately. This requires mental effort, emotional regulation, and attention, all of which are limited resources. When life feels overwhelming or unfair, these resources become depleted, and the ability to feel for others naturally diminishes. Stress plays a central role in narrowing empathy. Chronic stress activates the brain's threat response, increasing cortisol levels and heightening vigilance. In T-state, the mind becomes more self-focused, prioritizing personal safety and emotional regulation over the well-being of others. Subtle comparison mechanisms, which are always active, become more pronounced under pressure. People start to notice gaps between themselves and others more acutely, and any perceived advantage someone else has can feel threatening. even if they consciously wish that person well. Under these conditions, observing someone else's misfortune can trigger a quiet, involuntary sense of relief. This does not indicate malice or cruelty. It is a byproduct of the brain seeking emotional balance. When empathy is drained and stress is high, the mind experiences the removal of another person's success or dominance as a form of psychological reprieve. This relief is subtle, often fleeting, and can coexist with conscious compassion. People may outwardly sympathize while internally feeling tension lift as comparison pressure fades. Psychologically, this is connected to the brain's natural need to conserve energy and maintain equilibrium. Empathy is taxing, and when life demands constant adaptation, the nervous system prioritizes emotional survival. The brief comfort or satisfaction felt at another's setback is less about joy in their pain and more about regaining inner calm. It reflects the human tendency to seek emotional stability rather than the deliberate enjoyment of someone else's suffering. Awareness of this process is crucial for maintaining moral clarity and conscious choice. Recognizing that temporary relief in response to someone else's failure is a natural psychological response allows individuals to differentiate between instinct and intention. It provides an opportunity to respond consciously with empathy rather than suppression or denial. Understanding these limits humanizes the experience, showing that even good people are subject to the pressures of stress, energy depletion, and the mind's innate drive to restore balance. The moment a good person feels even a flicker of relief or satisfaction at someone else's misfortune, their mind often reacts almost immediately with guilt. This is because morality is deeply ingrained in human consciousness, and most people have internalized rules about how they should feel and act toward others. Feeling pleasure in another's failure clashes with these moral standards, creating a sharp emotional dissonance. The brain registers this conflict as a negative signal, and guilt emerges as a natural consequence, a warning that internal values have been momentarily compromised. Psychologically, guilt serves an important function beyond punishment. It is the mind's way of correcting behavior and maintaining alignment with personal and societal ethics. When relief is followed by guilt, it reinforces the individual's moral compass, reminding them of their capacity for empathy, fairness, and compassion. In other words, the guilt is proof that the instinctive reaction does not define the person's character. It is the conscious reflection and internal response that shapes morality. This sequence of instinct followed by guilt also demonstrates the difference between automatic emotional reactions and deliberate choices. The first feeling arises unconsciously, a remnant of survival-driven comparison and self-protective instincts. The guilt that follows is a conscious emotional correction, signaling that the mind has recognized the inconsistency between initial instinct and long-held moral values. This process allows good people to maintain integrity while navigating natural human impulses that might otherwise conflict with their ethics. Interestingly, the intensity of guilt can vary depending on the individual and the situation. People with stronger empathy or higher moral sensitivity experience it more sharply, while others may notice it only subtly. Yet even subtle guilt indicates that the brain is monitoring behavior against ethical standards, keeping the person accountable internally. This internal monitoring mechanism is a key component of what psychologists call moral support, which allows humans to live in complex social environments without constantly harming others, even when instincts might push in a different direction. Understanding this process can be both comforting and enlightening. Feeling a moment of relief at another's misfortune does not make someone inherently bad. What matters is the recognition of that feeling and the response it triggers. Guilt serves as an internal guide, proving that morality is active and intact. By acknowledging and reflecting on these instinctive reactions, good people can better understand their own minds, maintain emotional honesty, and choose actions that align with both human reality and ethical principles. Awareness is the critical bridge between unconscious reactions and conscious choice. Every human experiences fleeting emotions that may conflict with their values, yet most people never fully acknowledge them. When these feelings go unnoticed, they operate silently, shaping thoughts, attitudes, and even behavior without the individual realizing it. The problem is not the initial emotional reaction, such as relief at someone else's failure or subtle envy, but the lack of awareness Ignoring these instincts allows them to influence actions indirectly, sometimes in ways that contradict personal ethics or intentions. Psychologically, awareness functions like a spotlight in a dark room. Once a feeling is recognized and named, it becomes manageable. Research in cognitive behavioral psychology shows that simply labeling what you feel and why reduces their unconscious influence and diminishes automatic responses. When a person becomes conscious of their impulses, they can choose whether to act on them, suppress them, or redirect them constructively. Instinctive awareness transforms a raw instinct from a hidden force into information that guides behavior rather than dictates it. Unawareness, on the other hand, allows instincts to control behavior subtly and continuously. People who deny or avoid uncomfortable truths about themselves may unconsciously harbor resentment, judgment, or passive competitiveness. Over time, these suppressed reactions can seep into interactions, influence decisions, and damage relationships. The mind rationalizes these behaviors, making them seem justified, but the root cause remains unexamined emotion. This lack of insight is psychologically damaging because it disconnects individuals from their own motives and creates a gap between self-perception and reality. When a person recognizes the darker sides of their mind, they regain control and open the door to personal growth. Awareness allows reflection, self-correction, and deliberate action. Instead of being controlled by instinctual reactions, the individual can examine them through the lens of values, ethics, and long-term goals. Psychological research suggests that self-awareness is strongly correlated with emotional intelligence, resilience, and better social functioning. Acknowledging the existence of these dark thoughts is not a moral failure. It is a necessary step in understanding the mind and maintaining integrity. Ultimately, darkness understood becomes wisdom. Every uncomfortable feeling carries a lesson about human nature, personal vulnerabilities, and psychological patterns. By facing these truths consciously, individuals learn how to manage their impulses, respond with empathy, and act with intention. The instinct itself does not define a person. It is the awareness and choices that follow which shape character. In this way, recognizing and understanding inner darkness transforms natural human reactions into insight, self-mastery, and growth, turning what could be a hidden liability into a profound source of personal strength. So if you've ever felt that quiet relief when someone else fell, it doesn't mean you're broken, it means you're human. But what defines you? Not the thought that appears, it's the action you choose next. And the people who truly grow are not the ones without darkness, they're the ones brave enough to face it.